Hulungan na din siya, dig-away siya sa mama.
Hindi pa pahuwayon sa dito kay dili. Makatog si mama good na siya pa kay sila na siya sa ula. Right eh.
Dili ah. Oo. Wala na. Ano pa din?
how the enterprise is postured for
through our efforts to produce foreign intelligence that can be used to prevent narco-terrorists from trafficking lethal narcotics into our country and to deter and defend against cyber threats to the U.S. homeland. As we maintain strategic discipline and our focus on our number one priority, NSA remains vigilant to our global challenges, including efforts to deter China in the Indo-Pacific. Operation Epic Fury demonstrates the incredible warfighting support that NSA and U.S. Cybercom deliver on behalf of the nation, on behalf of the Joint Force, and against our strategic priorities and threats. In support of U.S. Central Command, NSA has played a critical role in our ability to deliver insight into the adversary and generate strategic advantage on the battlefield. Emerging technologies and increasing global interconnectedness continue to drive change at an unprecedented rate. As a technically oriented foreign intelligence organization that supports the intelligence community and warfighter, NSA must posture itself to succeed through speed, scale, innovation, and integration. The research and development of technology is a constant, not an exception. It helps us stay ahead of foreign adversaries who are also working feverishly to develop capabilities to be used against us. This requires a highly skilled workforce, a workforce that embraces innovation, and a broadened approach for agile collaboration across government, the private sector, and our partners around the world. In closing, I'd like to emphasize the importance of intelligence derived from Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act to the missions that I mentioned. This authority, which allows NSA to collect foreign intelligence on non-U.S. persons located overseas that use U.S. communications infrastructure, is vital to keeping the nation safe. I look forward to continuing the conversation with Congress about 702's importance and the rigorous compliance program that guides our use of it. Maintaining the trust and confidence of our nation's leaders and the public remains our top focus. Thank you again for inviting me today. Your support is what allows us to achieve positive national security outcomes for the nation, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, General. Lieutenant General Adams, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Chairman Jackson, Ranking Member Crow, and distinguished members of the subcommittee, thank you very much for the opportunity to discuss the Defense Intelligence Agency's assessment of its challenges, priorities, and resourcing. I'm honored to testify alongside the Honorable Hansel, General Rudd, and Lieutenant General Breedenkamp. The United States confronts an increasingly complex threat environment characterized by adversaries who are modernizing their capabilities, cooperating in unprecedented ways, and seeking asymmetric advantages against the joint force. These adversaries aspire to shape the international order in their favor. To meet these challenges, the Defense Intelligence Agency is dedicated to providing timely, actionable intelligence to support the warfighter, our national leaders, and the department. The over 16,500 men and women of the Defense Intelligence Agency, serving in over 140 countries around the globe, are focused every day on delivering that intelligence, and that it strengthens the defense of our homeland, enhances warfighter lethality, and counters foreign intelligence threats, as well as strengthens intelligence sharing with our partners and allies. Over the past year, DIA has provided critical intelligence, enabling hundreds of operations, demonstrating the value of our partnerships, and delivered thousands of intelligence products directly to the combatant commanders. Let me begin with the threats to the U.S. homeland. Along our borders, transnational criminal organizations, drug traffickers, and terrorist groups are attempting to circumvent U.S. law enforcement and harm U.S. citizens. DIA continues to leverage its analytic, collection, scientific, and technical capabilities to support both the department and law enforcement efforts. Beyond our borders, our adversaries, particularly China and Russia, are developing long-range and novel power projection capabilities to target the homeland. They continue to seek new avenues to threaten our cyber networks and our critical infrastructure. DIA supports homeland missile defense across core intelligence functions focused against the threat spectrum from pre-launch to post-conflict. These threats to the homeland are compounded by unprecedented adversarial cooperation across multiple domains. Beijing, Moscow, Pyongyang, and Tehran are enhancing ties to undermine the influence of the U.S. and our allies. Chief among these adversaries is the People's Republic of China. The Chinese Communist Party is rapidly developing military capabilities across all warfare domains designed to seize Taiwan by force while deterring U.S. intervention. China's military modernization continues at an alarming pace. China now operates more than 1,200 satellites on orbit, enhancing its ability to ubiquitously surveil the globe. Its nuclear warhead stockpile has surpassed 600 operational warheads, with projections exceeding 1,000 by 2030. Beijing also continues dangerous and aggressive actions in the South China Sea, particularly against the Philippines, using water cannons, ramming, and other coercive tactics. Russia remains both a strategic threat to the U.S. and an immediate and aggressive threat to its neighbors. Despite sustaining over 1 million casualties since the start of its invasion of Ukraine, Moscow maintains the economic, industrial, and demographic means to sustain the war at least through this year. Russia is also dramatically expanding its use of unmanned systems and integrating lessons learned from Ukraine. Importantly, Russia's nuclear arsenal remains the world's largest and most diverse. Turning to the Middle East, DIA continues to support an active conflict environment. Iran and its proxies remain engaged in operations against U.S., Israeli, and partner interests. Despite significant degradation of Iranian military capabilities through coalition strikes during Operation Epic Fury, Tehran retains thousands of missiles and one-way attack UAVs capable of threatening U.S. and partner forces throughout the region. Iraqi Shia militias have conducted hundreds of attacks against the U.S. forces since the operation began, demonstrating their commitment to Tehran despite suffering operational limitations. North Korea has strengthened its relationship with Russia, deploying more than 150 ballistic missiles and has sent more than 12,000 troops to support Russian operations. Pyongyang is using this cooperation to gain combat experience, advanced military technology, and economic benefits. North Korea also continues developing its nuclear arsenal and missile capabilities, including a new solid propellant ICBM designed to challenge the homeland. Underpinning all of these threats is an accelerating technological competition that represents a fundamental shift in the character of warfare. China and Russia are investing heavily in artificial intelligence, biotechnology, quantum sciences, and advanced microelectronics, all of which are foundational to future military innovation. China is already integrating AI into uncrewed systems, decision support, ISR, and cyber ops. The proliferation of unmanned systems globally, combined with AI advancement, creates ever-expanding threats to the U.S. critical infrastructure. Chairman, Ranking Member, meeting these challenges demand an intelligence enterprise that is agile, innovative, and integrated. It also requires sustained congressional support. I'm honored to lead the Defense Intelligence Agency, representing its talented and dedicated global workforce. While these threats are serious and complex, I'm confident that the men and women of DIA, working alongside our intelligence community partners, and with your continued support, have the expertise, dedication, and innovative spirit to meet this moment. I look forward to your questions and to working together to defend our nation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Lieutenant General Regenkamp, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Jackson, Ranking Member Crow, and distinguished members of the subcommittee. I am honored to testify before you today representing the men and the women of the National Geospatial-Intelligence Agency and alongside my Defense Intelligence Enterprise colleagues. Thank you for your steadfast support of NGA and the critical mission we perform for the nation. In alignment with the National Defense Strategy, NGA provides critical geospatial intelligence to national leadership. And as a combat support agency, we deliver accurate, timely, and decisive GEOINT that enables the warfighter's decision advantage. NGA's professionals provide the foundational geospatial intelligence that supports operations across all domains and informs national security decisions. Supporting Homeland Defense is paramount to NGA's mission. We provide intelligence support to border security operations, countering narco-terrorist networks, and maintaining maritime domain awareness throughout the hemisphere, all essential capabilities for defending the homeland. NGA also supports deterrent operations in the Indo-Pacific. We enable denial operations along the first island chain, support posture decisions, and provide the geospatial foundational intelligence necessary for operational planning. China challenges us across all elements of national power, while coercively seeking to expand its influence. And GEOINT is essential to countering that challenge. Even as we maintain focus on priority areas, NGA retains the capability to respond to emergent crises globally. We continue to provide indications and warning from Russia's activities in Europe to emerging threats in Africa and throughout the Middle East. NGA has consistently delivered mission-critical GEOINT to the Joint Force and our partners across the globe. Our fiscal year 27 budget request reflects our commitment to the National Defense Strategy priorities through investments in ground infrastructure to support new sensors, artificial intelligence and machine learning capabilities to process exponentially increasing volumes of geospatial data, and technology to accelerate GeoINT collection, processing, and production. To keep pace with the ever-changing global environment, NGA must transform our capabilities and operations. We are pursuing cutting-edge technology to achieve integration at operational speed and scale. Artificial intelligence is constantly evolving, and we are committed to leveraging AI with advanced data analytics, computer vision, and automation to maintain our competitive edge to rapidly deliver actionable intelligence. Our workforce must also transform, and as a data-centric agency, we're building the skill sets and the capabilities necessary for modern GeoINT operations. We're developing a highly skilled workforce with a culture that truly embraces emerging technologies and innovation. Partnership remains essential to our mission success. We leverage capabilities across the intelligence community, our allies, and our partners, and increasingly with commercial industry and the private sector. Commercial GeoINT capabilities are a force multiplier for NGA, expanding our capacity to meet mission demands. NGA stands ready to deliver timely, actionable GeoINT in support of the warfighter and for the security of our nation. We remain mission-focused and committed to transforming our capabilities to meet the demands of the future environment. I would like to thank the subcommittee for your leadership and your unwavering support to NGA, and I look forward to answering any of your questions in this session and in our closed session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. So we'll go to questions now. I'll start by recognizing myself for 5 minutes. And what I'd like to do, I think Lieutenant General Breedenkamp, you just addressed a part of my question in your opening statement. So I'll go to General Rudd and Lieutenant General Adams with this particular question. But my question revolves around the amount of information that our intelligence analysts sift through continues to grow exponentially. How is the Defense Intelligence Enterprise incorporating advancements in artificial intelligence in order to assist our intelligence personnel? I know, Lieutenant General Adams, you talked about what the Chinese are doing. How are we using AI to assist our intelligence personnel in making sure they are delivering timely and accurate analysis while still providing the same level of analytic rigor and integrity? We can start with you, General Rudd.
Chairman, I appreciate the focus and emphasis. This is, as we all know, critical technology that we have to, as America and as our defense intelligence community, we have to master it. We have to understand it. We have to be able to look offensively, defensively. What are the applications with it? And I can tell you that that's what the men and women of NSA are doing. We've got a robust effort around this across a number of our efforts in the enterprise, we again, day in and day out, have put a very robust effort around that. One of the keys to this is really making sure that we can understand it first, figure out where the application of this, as General Adams mentioned, the adversaries are going to leverage it, and we have to be faster. We have to be able to scale it across the entirety of our department warfighting efforts, and it's got to enable how we see, sense, and understand where the threats are, and then how we enable direct support to the warfighters.
Thank you. General Adams, I'd ask you kind of similar, but also to ask you also the additional question of, are we, I'm sure that probably within the department, the intelligence communities are working together in sharing information. Is that happening throughout the entire IC? Are efforts and advances in artificial intelligence being routinely shared so that we're not duplicating efforts and one component's not learning something that would benefit everybody else that they haven't shared with them.
Hey, Chairman Jackson, thanks for the question, and I echo General Rudd's comments. I would say at the Defense Intelligence Agency, as our mission is to incorporate and consolidate a whole picture of intelligence, not just one single ent, but the foundational military intelligence collective. We take SIGINT, we take GEOINT, we take HUMINT, and merge it all together. That is a massive amount of information, and we have very, very good, talented analysts, but they need tools for them to process all that information and produce the output that's demanded of our warfighter, by our policymakers, and by those who acquire systems. And so at the Defense Intelligence Agency, we recognized this a number of years ago and actually organized last year an effort. It was a pilot. It was called Task Force Sabre, and we isolated a group of folks, talented folks from across all directorates inside of DIA, who had expertise in analysis, expertise in collection, expertise in science and technology, expertise in integrating with the combatant commands, and put them together and gave them the resources they need and access to through commercial available capabilities, and some capabilities that had been piloted and pioneered at the NSA, some that had been piloted and pioneered at the CIA, and looked to them to define the path for the Defense Intelligence Agency. There was a great deal at NGA that they did with their systems there in AI. And so we've merged all of that together. And to answer your question that was at the tail end of your question, there's constant sharing and constant integration. And I think the department has done a very good job in consolidating in the CDAO the ability to access services, to prevent vendors who have very good capabilities out there that would tend to go and sell General Rudd the same thing that they sell me, that they sell General Breedenkamp, in different transactions for the same thing 3 times. It's been consolidated through the department, so I applaud the department in that effort. But we have since graduated the Task Force Sabre, and we've now moved it into the Defense Modernization Accelerator, and we will be talking to you in the budget hearings coming up, and as we proceed through this next budget cycle, we're looking to bump that up in a hub and spoke model, where we'll have a centralized repository inside of DIA for all the tools and capabilities, and then the spokes go out to the different applications. And so the analysis folks in DI will come and say, we need a better way to process our finished intelligence. What tools are available? And so I'm excited about it. It does require not just access to technology, but upgrading, upscaling, in improving the knowledge of the workforce. And we have initiatives to do that as well. But it's an exciting time to be in the intelligence agency as we take advantage of these capabilities, sir.
Thank you, and I know you're probably working on this as well, but some of the other entities I visited, I think one of the biggest areas for AI is obviously, you mentioned the sources of intelligence that you're gathering from everybody, but it's open source, just a massive amount of stuff out in the open source now that I think would go unnoticed without the assistance of AI.
Absolutely, and we've seen it go into overtime during this conflict in terms of the availability of relative important open source intelligence. And we have, through our S&T directorate, a specific entity that's designed to accelerate that. Postman is the kind of developmental tool that they built. It's taking what was kind of an ad hoc type of approach to open source intelligence and defining the tradecraft, defining the collection strategies, the requirements, and then organizing it and serializing the outputs of that open source intelligence. And it gets woven in with all the other intelligence on a daily basis.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. And Mr. Hansel, on the same topic here, could you describe how your office, you and your office, work with the Department of War's Digital and Artificial Intelligence Office to develop AI policies so that the needs of the enterprise are incorporated into these department-wide policies? And does recent department-wide guidance on AI allow for our intelligence components to meet the potentially unique intelligence needs that they have?
Thank you for the question, Congressman. Just to the last point, and to Congressman Crow's point about collaboration, and why one of my priorities is to making sure we have an enterprise lens on the AI front specifically. Definitely your point about how we address it in the department, but the amount of money we're spending and the criticality of the effect is such that we have to coordinate seamlessly across the USG. And in my dual hat role as the Director of Defense Intelligence, I do feel like we are doing that effectively across the IC. To your point, within the Department of War, this is certainly a focus. You'll see a major effort in our budget that will be reflected in the department's budget. And I would say absolutely yes, the policy is there today, but the cycle rate of which we will have to readdress policy issues will be unprecedented. So right now, I think the biggest challenge is making sure that we can truly share our data in a secure way that can allow us to exploit the best insights. If we are unable to provide AI enriched insights, we will not be able to operate at the speed and scale necessary for the future fight. And so, to answer your question directly, yes, today, but I think it's a continued focus that will have to remain throughout the adoption of the technology.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I agree. I think if the policy has to keep up with the capabilities, or else we won't be able to compete. And with that, I recognize Mr. Crow for as much time as you might need.
Thank you, Chairman. Director Adams, I'm going to go back to you. I know that DIA does a lot to support ongoing operations. One of that is one of the functions you all perform is involving in the targeting process specifically. So can you just describe very briefly the role that DIA plays in the targeting cycle, and more specifically these ongoing support that you provide to combatant commands during contingency operations in targeting?
Yes, sir. And with regards to targeting, it is a very specific and defined process. It's outlined by two specific chairmen of the Joint Chiefs instructions. One is targeting, the other is the development of no strike and collateral damage methodologies. The overall, and I'll just kind of hit it at an enterprise-wide view, and then but I can deep dive on any of the specific portions of it.
Just to top level.
Yeah, so we maintain the foundational military database of all infrastructure and order of battle that is the reference that everyone leverages, and everyone ties into it and uses it and pulls from it. In that database, the instructions allow us to create a model. Each record has a certain BE number, and it has all the defined properties and things that you would need to know about that item. And it's updated regularly depending on the priority of the theater or the type of target it is.
And do the commands, do they give you guidelines to develop those packages? Like how do you, what's the request? So what's the poll, so to speak?
So the overall poll comes from plans that are out there in terms of what types of targets might be needed to achieve the operational goals of the commander, and then from that the database is built. And
so the database is responding to or lays over like op plans, for example.
Correct.
Okay.
And so with that database, when a plan is beginning to be executed, that database is used by the combatant command to pull what is in that database to leverage. And then there's a deliberate process by which the Defense Intelligence Agency does not do targeting. We do support to targeting. And so the targeting occurs at the combatant command. They go through their process of lining up through a variety of defined steps of how they're going to leverage the data from the database. They can, once that data is used and those lists are developed, they can request from us vetting, not required, but what the vetting would provide, and it's not just to us. Vetting can be provided by the CIA, DIA, NGA, NSA, and it reviews and responds to the lists that they've developed on their targets. And in that, we assess intel gain and loss based on what their operational plan is, as well as potential collateral damage from that.
And is there any type of regular update interval, or is that only in response to a request from a combatant command to update or to vet?
The database is updated regularly. And I would say you gentlemen both asked about resourcing. That's one of the things that we are most challenged at, because in our old system, MIDB, it was a very manual process. And so we would have to prioritize using communications with the combatant commands, a subset of that. And some would be updated. Each target has a category on it, and it has a refresh interval of 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years. No refresh if there's no anticipated change. And that's where we get behind at times, and that's where we can actually potentially leverage not only the new foundational database, MARS, which is a modernized database, but also automation and AI in conjunction with that process to try to take advantage of that technology. And then once the vetting, if it's chosen to be done, it gives back to the combatant command, and then they do the final validation. And then it's the combatant commander who puts the targets from that process on the plan and executes the plan.
So there are public reports about this strike on the girls' school in Iran that would indicate that it was a U.S. strike, and it occurred because of outdated targeting, right? That it was on an old targeting set that hadn't been updated. The U.S. military thought it was one thing, it was something else. So I'm not going to ask you specifically about that strike because I know that's under 15-6 investigation, and that process will continue. But generally, how would something like that happen? Would that just be a gap between the interval that you just described that would dictate the vetting and the timeline for updating the targeting?
I would say I am fully supporting Central Command's investigation because I want to answer to that question as well. Because we have built our targeting plan and process and our orders that manage the process through decades of work, right? And I want to ensure if there is a flaw in our system, I'm guaranteed the 15.6 will determine that, and we will fix that flaw. But as of right now, I cannot guess what the problem was or make any guess as to or presume what the investigation might reveal.
Okay. And then the last question is about legal elements like law of war, law of armed conflict. At what point do targeting sets and packages get vetted for legality with the law of war?
So I talked about those steps. The last step I mentioned was validation. That's where operational and legal review takes place, and whether it complies with the law of war. So that's the final step before it gets approved by the combatant command.
And do you currently have any concerns about the resourcing or capacity for, that's done by JAG officers?
It's done by the combatant commander defines who his cell is that does his target validation. It likely will include, and I don't know, I can get you a detailed answer as to what the composition of that team would be. But
so the combatant commanders are doing that
yes,
legal review element, that
the
last
validation.
step.
Yes.
Okay. And sitting here today, I know you're not at the combatant command level, but sitting here today, are you aware of any concerns that have been raised in the last 6 months by any of those cells, any of those JAG officers involved about the legality of any targeting sets?
I am not, sir. No.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you. Mr. Amadei, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. The 2026 Annual Threat Assessment highlights intensifying competition with China and ongoing conflict with Iran. We are positioned to meet these challenges, but it requires fully resourcing our intelligence agencies and aligning every dollar with the national defense strategy. We must make disciplined choices without compromising the President's responsiveness and regional coverage our commanders depend on. Many point to AI as a way to do more with fewer people, and it is a powerful force multiplier, but we know it has its limitations. As we integrate new technologies, we should not trade away the skilled professionals and the human eyes and ears whose judgment and expertise allows us to anticipate and prevent the next global crisis before it unfolds. General Bradenkamp, adversaries like China and Russia now have near instant access to the same commercial high-resolution imagery the U.S. uses. How is the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency evolving its tradecraft to ensure that even with identical raw data, the U.S. maintains a superior decision advantage over its pacing threats?
Congressman, thank you for the question. And absolutely, that is something that we're absolutely looking into and executing changes and transformational initiatives, right, on how we set ourselves apart from how I would say private sector industry are executing their imagery collection operations. The tradecraft that I think specifically for NGA that we're having to leverage is we do have to leverage much more on the technology side than we've had to historically. I know we've had a lot of discussion about AI, ML, computer vision, new technologies, but those critical technologies and elements are essential for the way we execute our mission in NGA, not only today, but I would say even more so in the future. And we have to take those technologies and inculcate those into our tradecraft and our methodologies in terms of how we not only do that for tasking the sensors, but also how we integrate that into our processing, also in our analytics, in our dissemination at various classified levels or classified or unclassified levels for not only our warfighters, but for our policymakers and for our partners and allies that are out there. So that's one area that I would say is how we're leveraging those technologies and inculcating that into our tradecraft and how we do more of the high-end national technical means and geospatial intelligence, whether it's collect, analysis, or production for our agency.
And that'll maintain our competitive advantage.
And some other areas, Congressman, that I would ask if we could talk those in closed session.
All right.
Thank you.
And General, you've also emphasized that NGA doesn't just look at physical terrain, it also looks at human geography, things like where people get their water, how they vote, religious or ethnic identities.